It's time for the Volquest podcast, where we dissect the biggest news items of the week.
Good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the Volquest.com podcast, presented by our good friends at Smoky Mountain Organics with Rob Lewis and Austin Price. I'm Brent Hubbs. Don't forget about Smoky Mountain Organics, East Tennessee's most trusted health and wellness store, focusing on natural products and organic remedies to a variety of ailments. And if you go into one of their 4 locations and mention Volquest, you'll get 15% off of your total purchase. Those 4 locations are in Knoxville, right across from Trader Joe's. There's one in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, and Gatlinburg, and you can visit them online at SmokyMountainOrganics.com. A lot to get to in this edition of the podcast. What a wild week in college football, wild weekend in college football it was, setting up for a huge opportunity for Tennessee on Saturday night when Ole Miss comes to town with their high-powered offense. Guys, feels like points will be aplenty Saturday night when these two teams get together. Would be surprised if it's anything else otherwise, right, Rob?
I mean, I made this comment on John and Jimmy's show. I mean, I'm legit think for the first time that we've been doing this together on 20 years that I can say with a straight face that, I mean, you're going to need 50 points to win this one. And that's not even anywhere close to going out on a limb, because three days ago, Ole Miss just played a game exactly like that where you needed 50 points to win.
Yeah, this is, Ole Miss can get everybody open, it seems like, but they can't stop anybody, Austin Price.
No, they can't. And they're really hampered up front. They're the front, front 5 is what you call them, not front 7, because they run a 3-2-6. Maybe we'll see a variation of that this week. Maybe they put more in the box. Just seeing how Tennessee gashed Missouri. They're just not very good, though. I mean, like, defensively, they struggle. There seems to be a rift there between DJ Durkin and Lane Kiffin. And if Tennessee gets out to a quick start in this one, that thing could deteriorate even more, like on headsets and stuff. And all of a sudden, then it really becomes a thing. Here's the thing, about this game that really, to me, can be the one that kind of topples everything over in Tennessee's favor is the crowd. This thing's is a sellout. I expect it to be loud at Neyland on Saturday night, and after everybody's tailgated all day. I just think this crowd could have a huge say in this football game. Ole Miss going last year to Kentucky and winning on the road, okay, but that's Kentucky. Ole Miss, beating Arkansas at home, you're at home. This is more of a hostile environment for Matt Corral and that Ole Miss offense.
Strange to say, Rob Lewis, potential sellout crowd for Tennessee on Saturday night for the Vols, and kind of how everybody's gravitating to this team. Now, look, they beat a bad Missouri team. They beat a South Carolina team that's not going to finish the year with a winning record either. But people seem to be captivated, I guess, by the offense more than anything else. But fans seem to be kind of, I don't want to say falling in love, but a little bit of falling in love with this team. Why is that?
I mean, I think they've not had a football team that's fun to watch since Josh Dobbs left town. I mean, think about that. I mean, they've had, Jeremy Pruitt had the one year where they strung together a winning streak, and, that was a nice story to win a bowl game, but it's not been fun to watch since number 11, walked out off the stage. And this is fun to watch. I mean, it's just, they're easy to root for. Heupel's not, a prickly personality. It's not hard for fans to get behind him. I think we can all agree this fan base has been absolutely starved for something to cheer about.
I agree. I mean, even that year that they strung those wins together, Rob, I mean, what JG threw for 400 yards, had 3 100-yard receivers, and they scored 24 points. I mean, offensively, this place has been the barren desert or the Bermuda Triangle for the last 5 years since Josh Dobbs left. So all of a sudden, kids are getting open. And you go back to those first couple of games against Bowling Green and Pitt game they lost. I mean, they had people running wide open, and which, of course, pulls back the Band-Aid and scab of starting Joe Milton. But, it's one of those things where, they are fun to watch, and to run the ball, and the kids just seem like they're having a good time. I've talked to a couple of them this week, and, I said, you guys just look like y'all are having fun. And they're like, we are having fun. I mean, like, it's more about, it's not just about wins and losses. Like, we're just having a good time together.
there does seem to be a pretty good chemistry with this group of guys. That Rob doesn't seem to be stemming from wins. I mean, is that just the right chemistry hitting? Is that Josh Dobbs forcing chemistry? Do we have any idea why this team? Because I mean, if you think about it, Javonte Payton wasn't here. Okay, he catches his one pass for a touchdown every week. Hendon Hooker wasn't here a year ago. There's a lot of mixed pieces that are involved now that weren't involved, but yet they seem to kind of harmonize themselves pretty well.
I mean, I think Coach Heupel prioritized that when he got here. I mean, I think he recognized that he had inherited a fractured football team that, they weren't excited about coming to that building and putting in work. And I'm not, saying that's all Jeremy's fault at all, but Heupel's just got a different kind of personality. I mean, I think he treats people in a way that it just wasn't part of Jeremy's makeup. And I'm not just talking about the football team. I'm talking about people that, support staff, people in academics. I mean, I think he recognized that there needed to be a culture change. And you're talking about the kids. We don't know those kids, like their friends, but I don't think he brought in any problems. I think he was cognizant of, we need to upgrade the roster, but I'm not going to bring in any problems. Because I think one of the great quotes, I guess, who was it Greg Atkinsover who said you recruit your own problems? Like, coaches start, bitching and moaning about their team, their roster. And he said, you got to keep in mind, you recruited all your own problems.
Yep, that's right. And this team seems to get along well. And, that's part of the fun, I think. Scoring points, offense sells tickets. That's part of the fun. There's a lot of positive vibes going on for Tennessee. Josh Heupel saying, Austin, on Monday that he thinks he's going to have the bulk of everybody back this week from injury, which aside from selling, take all the ticket sales and checker kneeling and all those things away, the biggest story from Monday is the fact that this may be a much healthier football team this week than they were this past week.
Yeah, and again, I think that, I said this Sunday night on the locker room, to me, the biggest thing, and I think I said it in the podcast after the game, the biggest thing to me, the biggest takeaway from last week was not the win and how you won. It's the fact that you played an entire game. You didn't have to use Theo Jackson when he could have been able to play, but, you didn't have to. Brandon Turnage balled. You didn't have to use Jabari Small at all, which means you gave him a whole week off on that shoulder, which is big because, again, he needed the rest. Cooper Mays dressed out, which was to me shocking. And so the fact is, he's closer to being ready to go and should be good to go this week, as long as he doesn't have any setbacks. Not having to play certain kids last week and being able to get some of those younger kids some run, to me, that was a big deal, especially in an SEC game, because normally you wouldn't think that would be the case. But this is a team that is healthier right now than they were a week ago at this time. And, you give them, a few more days in rehab and, continue to work with the training staff, and, they should be good by Saturday.
Rob Lewis, I'm going to change it to this way, sort of related to injury, but not really. But because of injuries, more playing time has been there. Bigger surprise to you from a production standpoint: Brandon Turnage, Aaron Beasley, Jaquan Blakely.
Beasley. Blakely had played. He at least had played. He's been part of the rotation for going his third year. Man, I'm surprised that he leads defensive linemen and tackles. But Brandon Turnage was recruited and signed by Alabama. You had to think that there was some talent there. I had completely written Aaron Beasley off as a guy who would ever contribute here, and for him to be starting at linebacker, to be, I think was he fourth on the team in tackles with 31, had coming off a game where he was the leading tackler. That to me is by far the biggest surprise.
Tennessee's linebackers right now, Hogs. So on page, everybody had written him off as ever playing anything here, ever. Aaron Beasley was left, out in the cold after the cat incident.
Well, and he played four positions prior to that.
Huh?
He played four positions prior to ever getting in trouble. He was a running back. He was all over.
You were a Princeton fan.
Yeah.
Agreed. And so, but kudos to this staff for not writing the kid off, listening to what happened, all that stuff started to go away, started to recant stories and all that stuff. And he was back. And then your other linebacker is one that Jeremy Pruitt saved from extinction, and Jeremy Banks. So you look at all the linebackers and you're like, who would have ever picked this trio to be playing football at Tennessee, all in meaningful snaps, all on what has turned out to be a solid little defense, a scrappy little defense?
Well, and I mean, if you would have said that Tennessee was going to get virtually little to no production out of Jawan Mitchell, and then they were going to lose him for the rest of the year, if somebody would have said that, Rob, at the end of spring or early in the summer, the whole thought would have been Tennessee's going to be a disaster on defense because they're so bad in the middle part of that defense.
No question. I mean, I think I even wrote that in the 3-2-1. That I think just about everybody who looked at the linebacking unit in the preseason, like, man, Jawan Mitchell, he had better be the real thing, or they've got problems. And like AP said, I mean, they got three guys that nobody thought much of. I mean, I don't think people had written Jeremy Banks off, but he was not very good last year, certainly inconsistent. And I mean, they're a solid part of what, like AP said, is a decent, I mean, I think at least middle of the road SEC defense. Well, I did not think they could be.
My point is people had written him off when he had to sit out the year, and then Jeremy and them brought him back, and kind of the reclamation project of Jeremy Pruitt. Then people wrote off Beasley. I mean, like, just all their stories collectively to me is fascinating.
Well, I mean, look, people didn't question whether Jeremy Banks was athletic or talented enough to play. The question was, could he keep himself, get another opportunity and keep himself right, which obviously he's done. The other two, nobody thought was good enough to play in this league. A lot of people, didn't think they were going to talented enough to play in this league, and that's your 3-man rotation at linebacker. Now, scrappy little defense, middle of the road defense, going to face a heck of a challenge this week when you talk about Ole Miss's offense and what they do. Rob, what worries you the most about Tennessee defensively trying to defend the Ole Miss offense?
I think probably just Matt Corral. I mean, Pitt's quarterback was pretty good, pretty mobile. Corral is like on a whole other level, and Tennessee really struggled in that game, in the second game of the year. Now, is the defense probably better, more cohesive since then? I would say so, but I think just dealing with that level of a quarterback. I mean, Emory Jones gave him tons of problems, and he did not present the passing threat that Corral does at all. I mean, this is a true dual threat guy that I think is going to put a lot of stress on the defense.
Yeah, he can flat throw the ball, and he can run. I mean, extend plays, runs much better than Pickett does, throws it much better than Emory Jones. By far the most talented college quarterback. Now, upside down the road, you can talk about all that later, but in terms of effective quarterback play, by far the best Tennessee will have played to this point in the season. What's amazing to me, Austin, when I look at Ole Miss is just it reminds me of Tennessee. I mean, seems like there's always a guy open. You know what I mean? There's just always some guy open. You go back and look at that thing in the fourth quarter Saturday. I mean, that last touchdown, I mean, that receiver was 5 yards behind the Arkansas DB, and Arkansas is trying to protect a lead in the last 2.5 minutes of the game, and they let a guy get 5 yards behind him. It seems like that happens a lot. Tennessee's not busted a lot this year, but their secondary is not going to be stressed the way they've been stressed to this point, right?
Correct. I mean, they're going to have a lot thrown at them. So, how well do they, handle things in the back end? And as Rob said, I mean, when you do get, Ole Miss in third and longish type situations, not allowing, Matt Corral to break out and break contain and pick up a first down with his legs, to me, will go a long way. Just the ability to get off the field on third down, which goes back to playing good defense in the back end, which goes back to, just playing good sound defense overall. To me, that's the key defensively for Tennessee is they're going to score points. They're going to move the ball on you. But when you get them in third and long, you can't let them out of jail. You've got to be able to get off the field.
Well, you got to keep them. You got to make third and long, fourth and long, right, Rob? Because if you look at Ole Miss's numbers, I mean, he's going to go for it on fourth down. I mean, if it's 4th and 5, 4th and 6, I think he has so little. I think Lane Kiffin had so little confidence in his defense getting a stop that he feels like 4th and 6, let's roll the dice. 4th and 8, even, let's roll the dice. I'll give them the ball at midfield because why not? I mean, it's like a team kicking an onside kick because they don't think they can defend the guy returning kicks, right? So just like we'll give them the ball at midfield. That's kind of the way Lane Kiffin views his defense at this point. Like, give me the ball back, right?
I think it's confidence in his offense, being able to pick up 6 or 7 yards, and just what you said. Just, why do I even want to put myself through that? Throw the defense out there and have them go 80 yards instead of 55. What's the difference?
How good is this crowd going to be? How rowdy is this crowd? Because here's my thing, and I say this for this. I know some people are going to try to talk about it. I don't think this Saturday night is anything about Lane Kiffin. I mean, probably for some it will be, but this is not Lane Kiffin versus the Vols. Like when he rolled back in here with his earbuds and his designer shades when he was calling plays for Alabama. To me, this is about Tennessee and Ole Miss, not about Lane Kiffin in Tennessee. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe fans see it a total different way. I just don't feel like this is about Lane, Austin.
I don't think so either. No, I mean, I think that's a subject that people have brought up because he's the head coach. But as he pointed out in his press conference on Monday, we went back to USC. We as a part of Alabama and played them in a neutral site game. We went back to Knoxville, and played Tennessee as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Like, that stuff's a long time ago. I mean, that was about the same time John Gruden was sending these emails. So I mean, it's one of those things where I agree with you. I think that the media is trying to make this the storyline. I mean, you've seen all over, TV and everything all week, replaying like the stuff from what happened. I mean, that's great. We can get, Packer some more love, calling, Kiffin a snake, or Bill Shorey, standing his ground, and Heather Harrington yelling at people. All those great sound bites from that infamous video. And of course, Bud Ford, banging his wadded up paper and, cut your nose off to spite your face, TV, all that good stuff. But like at the end of the day, like, I don't think most fans really care. Most fans are like into this team more so than they are about hating Lane Kiffin. Like, I think they've really gotten gravitated towards these kids because of the fight they've shown. And as Rob pointed out, Tennessee fans are just hungry, man. They're hungry for a winner. You saw how they gravitated towards baseball, going out there and sitting in the street and watching it on a screen when you could have watched it at home in air conditioning, last spring. So, I mean, I think it's going to be there.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it might add a little spice to it, but it is not the main attraction. It's about the opportunity to beat a ranked team at home and during a nighttime kickoff, no less, which I think fans are. That's been a sore subject for somebody who has a college sophomore at UT and a wife who is a professional tailgater. There are a lot of those people out there.
Noon starts. People were over the noon starts. Here's the. I mean, Alontae Taylor was asked about Kiffin on Monday, and I started doing the math. I mean, Alontae was probably 10 years old, 9 years old when Lane left. I mean,
he didn't remember any of that.
No, I mean, nor should he. Nobody on this team remembers any of that, and none of the people that were here during that time are still here. I mean, if you think about it,
not like the athletic director who hired him is here.
No,
like,
I mean, the president's not here. The chancellor's not here. The head of the board of trustees is not here. The basketball coach isn't here. I mean, and on and on and on. I mean, there's just nobody that's here. I mean, this is obviously about Tennessee, and I think what's
it's just Frazier and Max. That's it.
Just Frazier and Max and Hawk.
Hawk. I'm going to disrespect the Hawk.
How ironic is it that what's getting more played this week? Lane Kiffin in the 2009 debacle or the 2017 coaching debacle?
Yeah, that story. The timing of that one was certainly interesting. Everybody can write whatever they want to write, but there was not anything new in that story that those guys that they produced. But whatever the case may be, with that story in the Athletic. Back to this game. How big of a concern is special teams for you, Rob, after the last couple of weeks?
Well, I wouldn't have said they were any kind of concern at all, 2 weeks ago, but now you have to wonder. And I thought, and you made a good point in your piece on Sunday that that late in the game there were some backups on the punt return team. But still, I mean, that's such an obvious situation. I mean, South Carolina's down big. They're like the 44, 45-yard line. And Tennessee was in punt safe, to top it all off. So, I mean, I think obviously the coaches had sent the kids. I don't put that one on Coach Eckler because, I mean, being in the formation you lined up in, you pretty clearly thought that a fake punt was on the table. Your guys just didn't.
Your guy's not supposed. He's not supposed to turn the gunner loose.
Yeah.
I mean, at no point schematically, was that supposed to happen. I think special teams are going to be could play a key role in this game. I think the other thing too is the turnovers. Now, Austin, we talked about this in the 2-minute drill. I mean, Arkansas lost the game Saturday because it turned it over twice.
Correct. I mean, again,
that's the difference in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee can, continue to do what they've done the last few weeks, which is, be turnover free, or at least limit them. I mean, like, you just can't have those debilitating turnovers. Now, what's more debilitating? Driving the length of the field and throwing a pick in the end zone, or giving Ole Miss a short field? You tell me, because I mean, you could argue either one. I mean, I guess both pick your poison, right?
Don't turn the ball over in the red zone while you're going in. That's South Carolina. Yeah. Don't let your defensive end throw a halfback pass.
And they just, I mean, it's been
inside the 5-yard line.
I mean, it's been weird to watch. I mean, we're halfway through the year, and there hasn't been, just one of those back-breaking turnovers. I mean, you can point to Hooker's interception against Pitt, but I mean, if you told Jared Garantano that was the bad play, he'd say, "Hold my beer." I mean, there's not been one of those where just absolutely destroyed, blew the game plan up like we've seen, multiple times in the last 2 years.
Yes, there's not been a damn it interception at the 5-yard line going into the swamp like we saw a few years ago. For sure, there's not been one of those. All right, before we get to recruiting,
we do apologize for Hub's use of profane language.
I apologize for that. It was a quote. It wasn't my word. I was just recounting the word of Tim Priest.
I'll throw Tim right under the bus.
back over. He about knocked me out that day when he threw the headsets as he said it. But
you can close your mouth now, Brent.
Different game. That was a positive.
I know, but still.
All right, let's keep moving forward here. How smart is Danny White looking right now? I mean, here's Danny White. He's brought out the ball letters. Okay, got the photo op going with them on game day. He's out tweeting out Monday night about checkered kneeling. He's not taking credit for checkered kneeling. It's, we heard you, Vol fans. Let's do this. You guys want to do it? We're all in to do it. I mean,
well, it certainly sounded like when he tweeted out the ball letter things that, hey, we're going to bring these out. But, I mean, sounds like people would like those back onto the stadium. So how do they incorporate that, with, the new area they're going to build?
Hubbard, where did those letters? Those weren't the letters. Those were
No. Those were the letters that were on top of the Jumbotron. The first rendition of the Jumbotron is where those letters he had out at gate 21. The original letters are not in existence right now. They would have to get remade.
Are you sure Max doesn't have them in the cage?
I'm told that those are gone. Those letters that Danny pulled out were in storage. Kevin Zerker had them somewhere in storage. It's like the scene from Under Siege. When they're going to shoot the old battlegrounds. We still got those. Danny White said, "Does anything know about the letters?" And Kevin Zerker's like, yeah, we still got those. They're in a closet somewhere. So they rolled those out, but they're not the original that you and I and Austin and all of us saw. That's when you knew you were in Knoxville, is when you drove down by the river. You came across, South Knoxville, and you saw the white letters with the orange background. And those are the ones that I remember. But I mean, give Danny White some credit here. I mean, he's just riding the wave. He's like, I'm body surfing this thing, and I'm just going to ride it to some popularity right now.
Starting to see why, he was viewed as being so savvy. I mean, I think strong move.
Yeah, pretty smart. We'll see what they come up with. And again, I give them credit over on campus. None of them are trying to take any kind of credit for the checkered kneeling deal or any of that, because that is a fan created deal, and the fans, got it moving again this time, and so away we go with that.
Well, and much smaller than that, but I mean, you saw him come out on Twitter last, after the first home game, and hired more staff to opened up more beer concessions, and I've heard that the lines are really bad and section blah blah blah, and we're addressing it. That's a small thing, but a bunch of small things add up.
less hot dog vendors, more beer salesmen. That's the bottom line for what Danny White's been trying to get done the last couple of weeks. With Checker Neyland, with a night game, with the energy that's around Austin, got a chance to be a solid recruiting weekend for Tennessee coming up. But this past weekend was a pretty good weekend. Give an assessment of your biggest takeaways from this past weekend and maybe a little bit of foreshadowing to this weekend.
Well, I thought they did a good job with Davis Igbeson. He's, a bigger kid, a bigger corner. I think Tennessee really likes that. He kept referencing when we interviewed him at the airport today, it's just different, man. I'm from New Jersey. He just gets that from New Jersey. Like, he didn't like that up there. And so he's going to go to Oxford in the month of November. Oxford's not Neyland. Now, granted, he didn't see Neyland,
at night and what
and
this
all
week's
that.
going to be, right?
But, I think it left a big impression on him. I know it left a big impression on his parents. Now, again, long way to go till December. But I think Tennessee's in a good spot as of now. But again, long way to go until December. Joshua Josephs, to me, that's kind of a coin flip. Tennessee, Michigan, he's wanting to do something in the month of November. If I was leaning, I'd still probably take Michigan at this point. Now, I could be wrong. This is the gut feeling, having talked to the kid on Sunday when he left. Just didn't. I mean, again, though, I'm trying to read a kid's poker face. He could, they definitely did themselves some favors, because I think, Michigan's kind of been laying on him pretty hard. So Tennessee, to me, moved there in the right direction. Did they do enough to catch him? I don't know. It was just hard. He was hard to read, really, really hard to read, which is why I, continue just to slightly lean Michigan. But, again, that was, just a total gut, just trying to, get a feel for him talking. Getting, Jacob Page at 23 in here unofficially was big. Getting in a guy like Jordan Thomas, a guy Tennessee really likes, in here, really big. I think Tennessee's totally trending in the right direction with him. This weekend potentially could be huge with some in-state guys coming into town. And so, Walter Nolan will be over on campus, or should be over on campus Saturday night for that game after being at Texas A&M, Alabama this past weekend. Wouldn't surprise me if Cody Jones made it in. We'll see. There's potential, and who knows who else out of Memphis can make it in between now and Saturday.
Yeah, and I think a good number of the Tennessee commits are going to be in.
Taven Jackson will be here.
Yeah.
I mean that whole group will be in town. Yeah.
So a lot of sales going on there with Tennessee. And again, a better atmosphere to sell, although, Saturday with the black uniforms and everything else resonated with some of those kids, last weekend. And nighttime atmosphere, chance to get some guys in this weekend will be a positive for Tennessee as well on the recruiting front as they look for some momentum there. Rob, on the hoops front, continued fall camp or continued preseason camp for them. Recruiting wise, a little early in the week to see what's going to happen yet, or is this going to be a weekend for them?
Not a big weekend, but Chandler Jackson, the guard that they just recently offered out of Memphis, will be here for his official visit. They put that together pretty quickly, and BJ Edwards will be making his official visit as well. Tomorrow, Wednesday, the 13th, Jet Howard is making his announcement. I'm just going to throw it out there in case I get totally blindsided. Me and everybody else that covers basketball recruiting have long thought he was going to Michigan to play for his dad. I will still be surprised if that doesn't happen, but I've had too many people from the Tennessee side tell me that he loves Tennessee and would like to come to Tennessee to totally discount it. So I just want to throw it out there so Tennessee fans entertain it as at least a slight possibility, but it's
got to be Michigan, right?
I think so, Hubbard. But I know. He loves Rick Barnes. The mom loves Rick Barnes. But people tell me the kid grew up in Florida. He doesn't have any ties to Ann Arbor other than his dad's the coach. Doesn't really like it. Doesn't really like the scene up there. But again, I would be stunned. But I want to pass along what I'm hearing from the Tennessee side. That Tennessee is not. They don't think it's a layup for Michigan. And another argument is that there's a good chance his dad won't be there. Howard's probably a multi-year player. his dad's already gotten some feelers from the NBA. So, he was involved with the Clippers search last year and would probably, like any college coach, would probably take that opportunity if it pops up. So, maybe the thought that his father wouldn't be there, this whole time. But, my comeback is, with the transfer rules now, why would that matter?
Right.
I mean, if he leaves, you leave. But anyway, Tennessee says I'm hearing from the Tennessee side that it's a possibility. I will be. It's like a Tennessee beating Florida situation for me. However, I'm gonna have to see it to believe it.
Well, we'll see
But
what
I
happens.
just want to make sure to mention. I mean, I didn't even really try to follow up with the kid after his visit here.
Yeah,
It's kind of where I stood on it.
Yeah, it has to be Michigan, right? I mean, that's just the assumption with everything.
So we'll see. I rambled on too long about it, but I just want to pass along what I'm hearing from the Tennessee side.
All right, what about this current team? What's the vibe going out there? Just a lot of competition?
I mean, I don't think the starters are locked in, but if they started today, I've got it on pretty good authority. It'd be Volquest, Chandler, Josiah, Olivier, and Vescovi. Vescovi is the one that kind of surprises me. I really thought Justin Powell would be a threat to come in and take his spot. And Justin Powell's still going to play a lot, and he could even end up averaging more minutes, or equal minutes. And I'm a little bit surprised that, Huntley Hatfield is not over Olivier, but I also think that may just be we're rewarding the veteran and making the young guy earn his. Again, Hatfield's going to play a lot. Powell's going to play a lot, but there's going to be some good players some talented players that don't get minutes.
Does Barnes? I mean, Barnes doesn't like a deep bench. He doesn't play. He trims that thing down, particularly in conference play. Is he going to have to forego that and kind of stretch that bench a little bit than he has in the past?
I don't think he will. I mean, you watched him as much as I have. I mean, going beyond 8 without, unless there's foul trouble involved is pretty rare. I mean, and even sometimes going much beyond 7. And as far as that 8th guy having a defined role and getting defined minutes every night is not always guaranteed. So I'll be really surprised if he's got more than 8 guys that are regular rotation players. And again, that's going to leave some dudes who are good players, scratching and clawing for scraps.
And that's why Rick Barnes is smiling every day he goes to the practice floor, because he's got terrific competition, and there's no better motivator than playing time and competition for playing time. And he certainly has plenty of that as his team continues to move towards the start of the preseason schedule coming up in the month of November. All right, it's Tennessee and Ole Miss, and a big one coming up on Saturday night. We're going to cover it for you all week long. Of course, we have the Mailbag podcast coming up on Thursday. We have the matchup piece later this week. We'll have our stock report. We'll have tons of recruiting stuff out there from this past weekend, plus get you ready for this weekend. Lots of things going on throughout the week this week to get you ready for Tennessee and Ole Miss. That's going to do it for this edition, the Tuesday edition of the Volquest.com podcast, presented by Smoky Mountain Organics. For Austin Price and Rob Lewis, I'm Brent Hubbs. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, everybody.
You've been listening to the Volquest podcast every week here on Volquest.